segment is sponsored by Entrepreneurs Access Network. In the U.S., about 500,000 startups launch every year, according to the Entrepreneurs Access Network. And nationwide, only 18% of businesses are owned by people of color. And these businesses continue to face obstacles like access to funding. So here with some help for business owners of color is Lee Henderson from the Entrepreneurs Access Network. Welcome to Great Day Washington, Lee. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Ellen. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about this current social justice landscape. How have both Black and Hispanic business owners been impacted by this?
Well, Ellen, I would say that, before, if we go back on rewind the clock before the pandemic, there's been some historical sort of disparity in terms of access to resources. And this group has been somewhat underserved in terms of this group being Hispanics and Black entrepreneurs for some time. If you fast forward to the pandemic, all entrepreneurs, all businesses, you would say that were really significantly impacted by what happened during the pandemic, particularly entrepreneurs, just because entrepreneurs don't have as healthy balance sheets as some of the big companies. And we saw that the issues with Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs was really exacerbated during this time. So you kind of fast forward to 2020, when a lot of significant events happened in 2020, there was this real acute awareness around social justice and people being really focused. People started to lean in to say, how can we help sort of this underserved community? And what we saw was somewhat encouraging. We saw that because of the attention and awareness, revenues were increased. There was a lot more investment dollars. Collaboration between big companies and minority entrepreneurs increased. So there was a lot of positivity that went along with that. Now, we did somewhat of a checkup in 2022, just several months ago, with a survey that we conducted this year to go back to those entrepreneurs and say, okay, it's now a couple of years later. How are you doing, and how is this attention continue to help your businesses? What we found, both positive and some warning signs. The positive of it was things are still trending in the right direction. Revenues are still up, the results are still improving, but the warning signs created a little bit of anxiety for Black and Hispanic entrepreneurs, and that warning sign is that the level of collaboration, the level of attention is waning a bit, and that's causing some concern for sure.
Okay, so obviously we need to throw our support behind them, right? How does showing that community support to them really improve and benefit for everyone, right? We're all as one.
We're all as one, and I would say overall, it's Entrepreneur Month, right? So overall, I would say, entrepreneurs are first of all the bedrock of our economy, right? They hire, and employ millions and millions of people every year, and they produce hundreds of billions of revenue, and so I think we can say that it's really important. The other thing that's really important, particularly at this time, is with the volatility that we're seeing. We know that entrepreneurs, they're the innovators, right? So they're always thinking about, okay, well, how do we deal with this volatility? How do we deal with this uncertainty? How do we deal with what's next? And then you start to think about the patch or the demographic that we're talking about, which is the underserved Black and Hispanic population. And you start to think about, one is the importance of diversifying just to begin with, but also the impact that this set of entrepreneurs have in certain communities. That's why I think it's really, really important just to help entrepreneurs as a whole, but certainly lean in and ensure that we're differentially investing in this underserved group of entrepreneurs.
I was going to ask real quick for a specific example of how we can show that support and help.
Yeah, so as a consumer, Ellen, you and I are consumers, and I would say it's really being intentional about how we spend our dollars. Are we leaning into this? Are we really getting interested in Black and Hispanic-owned businesses, services, and products? So we got to be intentional.
Are you hoping the business community kind of addresses this as well, kind of through some of the examples I feel like you were just talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that is how I would say the business community should help, because, just overall, one of the things I'll say as well with the business community, one thing that we saw that came up in the survey was the importance of mentorship, right? The mentorship, we sort of throw that word around sometimes sort of casually, but, when we surveyed these entrepreneurs, they talked about that a bit and said that some of the access that they get with our Entrepreneur Access Network program that you referenced earlier is the fact that we're actually mentoring and connecting these entrepreneurs, not just with our folks within EY who are mentors, who understand entrepreneurs, who've been doing this a long time, but also to real entrepreneurs who've been very successful for many years as well. So that mentoring itself is just an element of the social capital that this group and sometimes we're missing, that they're now getting, that's just giving them that little extra help to ensure that they reach their ambitions.
Well, I know this is just the beginning of what you have all learned from all of the studies that you've been doing. Where do we go to learn more and get more information?
Search bar, EY's and Ernst & Young, Entrepreneurs Access Network, or just go to ey.com/EAN and you'll find us. And there you're going to find a ton of resources for all the entrepreneurs, no matter how big, how small, that exist already on that site. But it also is the entryway to get you into the program if you're interested in applying for the Entrepreneurs Access Network program.
Great. Lee, thank you so much for talking to us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ellen.